What if I told you that while everyone's obsessing over big-name veteran acquisitions, the Montreal Canadiens might be about to pull off the most brilliant under-the-radar trade in franchise history? While the hockey world fixates on Nazem Kadri's potential move from Calgary, there's a 21-year-old center in Anaheim who could be the missing piece that transforms Montreal from promising rebuild to legitimate contender, and hardly anyone is talking about him. McTavish isn't just another young forward floating around the trade market. This is a player who combines NHL-ready size, developing skill, and the kind of two-way game that championship teams are built around. But here's the kicker. According to NHL insider Jeff Marek, McTavish is probably the most available he's ever been, which means the Canadiens might have stumbled upon the perfect opportunity to solve their second-line center problem without breaking the bank or sacrificing their future. The Kadri Mirage. Why Plan A might be a dead end? Let's address the elephant in the room first. Nazem Kadri represents everything Montreal thinks they want in a second-line center: veteran leadership, proven production, and the kind of playoff experience that young teams crave. But sometimes what looks perfect on paper becomes a nightmare in reality, and Kadri's situation screams potential complications. The Calgary Flames aren't exactly rushing to accommodate trade requests, even if Kadri is reportedly willing to waive his no-movement clause for Montreal. Calgary's unpredictable direction under their current management makes any trade negotiation a moving target. One day, they're sellers. The next, they're trying to retool around their veterans. That uncertainty creates exactly the kind of drawn-out trade saga that can derail entire off-seasons. More importantly, Kadri's contract situation presents long-term challenges that don't align with Montreal's championship timeline. At 34 years old with multiple years remaining on a significant deal, he represents a win-now move for a team that might still be 2 seasons away from genuine contention. The Canadiens would be paying premium prices for a player whose peak years might not coincide with their competitive window. The McTavish revelation. Youth meets opportunity. McTavish represents something far more valuable than immediate production. He represents potential alignment between talent acquisition and organizational timeline. At 21 years old, he's entering the prime development years that could coincide perfectly with Montreal's emerging core reaching their competitive peak. The size factor cannot be understated in today's NHL. McTavish brings legitimate center ice presence that becomes increasingly valuable during playoff hockey when games get physical and space becomes premium. But he's not just a big body, he's a skilled big body who can contribute in multiple facets of the game. His two-way development suggests the kind of player who can anchor a second line while providing defensive reliability that coaches trust in crucial situations. These aren't easy skills to develop or acquire, and finding them in a player who's still years away from his prime makes McTavish an incredibly intriguing target. The Anaheim window. Why now makes perfect sense. Jeff Marek's insight about McTavish being probably the most available he's ever been isn't just insider information, it's a strategic roadmap for understanding how trades actually happen in the NHL. The Ducks are at a crossroads where they need to make decisions about their roster construction under GM Pat Verbeek, and those decisions create opportunities for teams like Montreal. Anaheim's eagerness to turn the corner and compete suggests they're prioritizing immediate help over long-term development projects. This philosophical shift creates the perfect storm for Montreal, who can offer the kind of veteran pieces that help teams compete now while acquiring the young talent that fits their future timeline. The Ducks situation is particularly interesting because they're not necessarily looking to rebuild. They're looking to reshape their roster for immediate improvement. This means they might value proven NHL veterans more highly than prospects or draft picks, which plays directly into Montreal's strengths. The restricted free agent advantage. McTavish's status as a restricted free agent creates unique leverage for any acquiring team. Unlike pursuing unrestricted free agents or players with no movement clauses, Montreal would have complete control over his contract situation and future with the organization. This control extends beyond just contract negotiations. It means the Canadiens could structure a deal that fits their long-term salary cap planning while ensuring McTavish remains part of their core for his prime years. The ability to build around a player rather than simply adding them to an existing structure represents a fundamental advantage in roster construction. The timing also works perfectly for Montreal's competitive timeline. By the time McTavish reaches his prime performance years, players like Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield will be entering their peak seasons, creating the kind of synchronized core that championship teams require. The theoretical trade framework, heavy.com speculation about veterans like Mike Matheson and Josh Anderson potentially being involved in a McTavish trade illuminates how Montreal might construct an appealing offer. Both players represent exactly the kind of immediate help that Anaheim seems to be prioritizing. Matheson brings legitimate offensive production from the blue line, a skill that's increasingly valuable in today's NHL. His ability to quarterback power plays and contribute to transition offense could address specific needs for the Ducks while freeing up space for Montreal's developing defensive prospects. Anderson represents the kind of power forward that every team claims to want, but few actually possess. His combination of size, speed, and finishing ability could provide Anaheim with exactly the kind of complementary scoring they need to support their star players. The development trajectory advantage, what makes McTavish particularly intriguing, is how his development trajectory aligns with Montreal's organizational philosophy. The Canadiens have demonstrated exceptional ability to develop young talent, and McTavish represents the kind of player who could benefit enormously from their system. His age and skill level suggest he's reached the point where he needs expanded opportunity to continue developing. The Ducks' depth at center might be limiting his growth potential, while Montreal's need for second-line production could provide the perfect platform for his continued evolution. The two-way aspects of his game indicate the kind of hockey intelligence that responds well to quality coaching and expanded responsibility. These are exactly the kinds of players who take significant steps forward when given the right opportunity and organizational support. The sustainability factor beyond the immediate impact, McTavish represents sustainable roster construction in ways that veteran acquisitions simply cannot match. His age and development curve suggest years of potential improvement rather than the gradual decline that comes with aging veterans. This sustainability becomes crucial when considering Montreal's long-term competitive window. Rather than borrowing from the future to compete now, acquiring McTavish would represent adding to their future while addressing immediate needs. It's the kind of roster move that extends competitive windows rather than shortening them. The contract implications also favor long-term success. A reasonable extension with McTavish would provide cost certainty during his prime years while avoiding the kind of backloaded deals that create future salary cap problems. The strategic pivot point Kent Hughes faces a fascinating decision point that could define his tenure as Montreal's general manager. The safe move involves pursuing established veterans like Kadri who provide immediate certainty but limited upside. The bold move involves targeting players like McTavish who represent significant potential but require patience and development. Given Montreal's current competitive timeline and organizational strengths, the bold move might actually be the safer long-term strategy. The Canadiens have proven they can develop talent, and McTavish represents exactly the kind of acquisition that could pay dividends for years to come. The availability factor makes this decision even more compelling. If McTavish is indeed as available as Marek suggests, the opportunity might not exist for long. Other teams will recognize his potential, and the Ducks' asking price might increase as competition develops. The perfect storm scenario, everything about McTavish's situation, suggests the kind of perfect storm that creates franchise-altering trades. A talented young player on a team ready to compete now, available at a reasonable price with contract status that favors the acquiring team. These elements rarely align so perfectly. Montreal's ability to offer immediate help to Anaheim while acquiring long-term value represents exactly the kind of mutually beneficial trade that both organizations should pursue aggressively. The Ducks get proven NHL talent that helps them compete immediately, while the Canadiens acquire a cornerstone piece for their future. This isn't just about filling a roster spot. It's about adding a player who could become integral to Montreal's championship aspirations while fitting perfectly within their competitive timeline and organizational philosophy. The Mason McTavish opportunity represents more than just a plan B for the Canadiens. It might be the plan A they didn't realize they needed. Sometimes the best moves are the ones that address immediate needs while building for sustained success, and this trade possibility checks every box for Montreal's current situation. I'm genuinely excited about the possibilities this trade represents, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on whether Montreal should pivot from veteran acquisitions toward young talent like McTavish. Do you think he's the kind of player who could thrive in Montreal's system, or are there concerns about his development that I'm missing? Share your predictions in the comments about how this situation unfolds. And hit that like button if you think the Canadiens should make this move happen before other teams catch on to McTavish's availability.